No place is perfect, and there are headaches and problems everywhere. So if you were to ask me, I would say that the journey back to Mamaland is about, in part, I think, is about choosing which ones you want to tolerate, which headaches you want to live with. If you come to Kenya, you'll find its own set of problems. You live in diaspora, it's the same story. So, in some of my past videos, I've talked about some of the challenges that we go through as people living in diaspora. And I'll do that today again, but I want to put a disclaimer before I move further. That, for one, in truth, the Western world has been excellent for many of us. And there's lots of good things about living in the West. And so, personally, I would never discourage anybody who is interested in exploring the world beyond Africa. And so, when we talk about problems that we face as returnees or problems we face in diaspora, it doesn't mean that the West is all problems. There's good things, but there's also a lot of really tough things. So I want you to keep that in mind so that it doesn't sound like I'm being biased without looking at both sides. So, well, good morning, friends. Today, I want to show you one of the beaches in Kisumu. I believe they call it Bingo. Maybe it's Bingo or Loco. Those who know can help me figure out the difference. But I think it's Bingo Beach. And as I show you this relatively okay place, I want to talk to you about some of the things that are really driving those of us who live in diaspora, driving us back to Mamaland. In some of my past videos, I've already covered this topic, but there's way more to be said that I can't even pack in a single 10-minute video. And so there's more that I'm going to add today. And also, this might be beneficial for the many subscribers who have joined us more recently. A lot of folks have joined us in the last couple of months who may have missed earlier episodes that talk about the challenges that drive us away from diaspora. And if you've been with us for a while, you already know that I'm a returnee who is working his way back slowly back home. And I'm hoping in time I will be fully at home. Hopefully I'll be in a place where I spend the majority of my time in Kenya, with maybe just a couple of weeks here and there away from Kenya. Because this is really where my heart is. I just have to live in diaspora for reasons beyond my control. But I keep going back and forth. And most of our filming is done in Karateng, but today we are in Kisumu, filming one of these entertainment areas that has a beach. And by the way, it's not unusual to find beaches in Kisumu that have a lot of wild animals, because this is still a wild lake. You'll find hippos, you'll find crocodiles and things like that. And that's why you see some barriers put in this place. But anyway, join us in Kisumu and let's explore this topic. But before, again, we say too much, I just want to remind you again, if you can, please subscribe. Or if that's not possible today, I hope you return as a viewer. Also, feel free to reach out on matters consultation. We work with a lot of folks living in diaspora on things, construction, land, and other projects that may be of interest to people who want to eventually return to Africa. So reach out on the number that I post on my videos. Anyway, so the first thing that I say is something that I found unique. That puts a lot of pressure on us in diaspora is this craziness around credit scores. And I think this is some sort of arbitrary number that in some ways you actually have very little control over. And this magic number can actually bar you from living in decent areas, landing a good job, getting fair rates for insurance, for loans, and even cost you opportunities to improve your life. So this credit score thing is a major deal in many Western world. I know Kenya is slowly working its way towards that direction, but it's still there more on a mini scale. But as I live in the village, nobody cares about my credit score. It means absolutely nothing. And my life in the village is just perfectly normal with or without a credit score. And so those are some of the things that you don't have to worry about when you come back to the village. And for those who are living in the Western world, you know very well that for the most part, while you have no control over it in the Western world, in Kenya, you can pretty much buy your way around it. Because this is one place that I've seen people create a certificate, legitimate, quote unquote, legitimate certificates from the exam center, create exam results. Pretty much money can buy you anything. And so I imagine a situation where if somebody were to get stuck because of the credit score in Kenya, they would simply pay their way around that. In the Western world, I'm not aware of anything like that. Maybe it's there, I just don't know it, but this credit score thing can be a huge mess for those who live in diaspora. It's a pressure that we don't have to worry about when we come back home. Now, for those who are parents, think about your experience with maternity. I have a friend who told me, I think she lives somewhere in the UK, no, somewhere in Europe. I can't remember what country that was, who mentioned that in the comment section, that her doctor actually at some point were doing house calls to her home. And at some point she received like a year worth of maternity leave with a guarantee that she could still come back and get her job. Now, as an American, living in America, that is almost unthinkable. The idea that you would get paid maternity for that long is almost unthinkable. In fact, those of us who live in progressive states like California get maternity and paternity leave, and I think it's probably 30 days or somewhere thereabout. But I can't imagine a year's worth of maternity leave and still being able to get your job. And this is even worse if you live in America in conservative states. And then when you bring in the issue of childcare right after maternity, America is another wild place. The cost is something else. Like personally, I cannot afford to hire a nanny. And that's why in many of my videos, you'll always see me with my supervisor walking with me right now. Because typically that's not possible. And at home, it's a whole different scenario. My sisters are there. And if I wanted to, I could still hire a nanny, which is still very affordable. And then think about medication. In Kenya, you could simply walk into a pharmacy and with no prescription, still get something like albuterol for very cheap. And in the US, you can't even imagine that for some of this medication. And the costs are just astronomical. If you compare, for example, Canada and the US, you look at the cost of insulin in Washington State, which just borders Canada, and then go look for the exact same medication across the border. It's like night and day. And because again, America, just like in Kenya, has a ton of cartels everywhere that make sure that medication is kept very, very expensive. And then, of course, I had a scenario where a friend told me that she had multiple chronic pain. Again, this comes from the comment section, including some kind of an autoimmune disease. And she said something that really stuck with me, that every time she comes to Kenya, it's almost like the pain magically disappears. And she's just fine without the medication. But as soon as she goes back to the US, everything flares up and she has to go back on medication. So I don't know whether that is something psychological, but yes, there's a pain associated with living in the West. Now, then bring that back to the cost of living, especially for those who live in states like California. I know folks who pay up north of $4,000 a month just in mortgage or even in rent. Now, in the village here, obviously, once you have your little crib, you pay absolutely nothing. Where I live in the village, I have no mortgage, I have no rent, I have no water bill, I have no electricity bill because I generate my own electricity. And so the cost of living is way, 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 way low. And for the most part, except when I have to travel as needed, we spend very little in the village. And of course, the dollar goes a long, long way. So the cost of living is very different. Yes, you make more money in the US, but a good bit of it will be spent in the US. Now, again, I was talking to another friend in the UK as well. I hear things like 6 months of paid leave. You're getting a holiday leave. You get like a sick leave. And on top of that, you still get like a paid vacation. Where I work, we even have a scenario where a sick person would use all of their sick days and have to beg other colleagues to donate to them extra days so that they can care for themselves when they're sick. And so it's just unimaginable for us to think about people getting like a full year maternity leave, getting paid vacation and all that still within the same year. And part of it has to do with unions, because I know many parts of Europe, unions are really welcome. In the US, many states are very hostile to unions, especially those who live in conservative states. In California, we are a little bit more fortunate with unions because our state is run by progressive folks, and so unions are not a problem for the most part. Now, in many parts of the world, Kenya included, you actually don't even need a car for the most part. Yes, a car is functional, but you can get by on public transportation just fine. Same with many parts of Europe. Not in California and not in many places in the US. There are places that if you don't have a car, you are in trouble. And then, of course, when you're looking at the cost of retirement, on a fixed income in the US, life is very tough. I have seen older people in grocery lines counting and pinching pennies because they're on a fixed income and the costs keep rising. So retiring in America can be very expensive, especially for folks who were not very well prepared based on their circumstances. In fact, this gets even tougher for people who come to America later on. So, well, I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next. Thank you. Bye.